Okay, what is the science behind neurofeedback?
What's the science behind neurofeedback? Well, neurofeedback is actually predates back to the 1880s. Its first discovery was with Hans Berger's discovery of brainwaves. It's actually an interesting story there. Hans Berger was going to school. He went to the cavalry. He was riding on a horse. He fell off the horse and he almost suffered a severe head injury, trauma. His life had changed. And at that very moment, his sister from halfway across the world felt something and had their dad send him a telegram. So when he got home, he sees this telegram from his sister and he's like, "Are you okay? I felt this." And that's what got him thinking, like, how is this possible where my close sister or somebody from the other end of the world senses I'm in danger? What is it that communicates those areas? And that's, Hans Berger is known to be attributed to the discovery of brainwaves. And that's where we came up with alpha, theta, beta, the various different brainwaves. He's the one that came up with all these. But true neurofeedback actually came about in the 1950s, 1960s. The forefathers, the creators, are Barry Sterman, PhD from UCLA, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was also Joe Camilla, Dr. Joe Camilla. Yeah, these two were the founding fathers of neurofeedback. And the way that happened is basically they were playing with EEGs and trying to describe how the various functions of those brain waves that Hans Berger had discovered can be recorded and what their functions are. Funny story there, they actually, during that time, Ivan Pavlov, which we're all familiar with, Pavlov's dog, he had been working with dogs, so Dr. Sterman took same approach as Pavlov with cats. And now he provided the cats with a certain stimulus and then recorded their EEGs, their electrical brain frequencies, and based on certain frequency patterns, he would stimulate or give them a conditioning in a sort to do certain behaviors, supporting behaviors. And this yielded to neurofeedback, but the ultimate purpose and use, I think, really happened when Dr. Sterman was approached by NASA. During that time, NASA was already spending millions of money sending rockets to the moon, and they had this issue with rocket fumes deeply creating problems with those around it, from hallucinating to severe headaches, etc. So they called in Dr. Sterman to see if there was any way that he could work with the people to try to alleviate this. So the first thing he did is brought in his cats, the ones that he'd previously worked on, and started testing the cats for the various illness or the various symptoms from this rocket fuel. 10 cats were impervious right off the bat. And he was shocked. He was like, he didn't understand why 10 of these cats were suddenly impervious to this, intoxicating fumes or this rocket fuel. And then he realized that it was the 10 cats that he had performed neurofeedback on. And somehow, during these process, these cats had actually gained a resilience in their brain. And I'm speaking in very simple terms and not technical terms, so it can be easily understood. The resilience being that the various receptors in the brain had become impervious to that kind of effect or stimulus from the rocket fuel. So quickly seeing this, he started working with NASA and alleviating the problem through neurofeedback. Now, back then there's different types of neurofeedback, which we can get into later, but these gentlemen were the forefathers, 1950s, 1960s, that actually created the first neurofeedback mentality and brought it to life.
So according to all these information, how long has neurofeedback been around?
Like I said, it started first in 1960s. During the 1990s and 2000 was the year of the brain in America, and Sir George H. Bush had made several changes in the law to try to promote higher learning, brain usage, and discovering from various different studies and research in this area. There was a lot of investment made. During this period, I think there was a huge uptick in neurofeedback usage in very many different ways.
So what are the different types of neurofeedback?
There are very many different types of neurofeedback, but let's just divide them into two categories, the evasive and non-evasive. The evasive is a form in which the electrical frequencies in your brain are then supplemented with some form of contact or some kind of neurofeedback. This is usually, in the case, electrical impulses to the brain or to the body, or in some sense, like emotional freedom technique uses this kind of touching patterns to kind of anchor in certain areas of the brain to different thought patterns. I think most often we would know about one that's evasive. That's the one we most often hear about. The most severe of it being electroshock therapy that they used way back. I mean, there are still cases of it being used in extreme situations, but in general it was being widely used in insane asylums to try to treat people with extreme bipolar or schizophrenia and try to get them, shock them out into their senses. Of course, this is not very healthy, and the side effects were severe. So since then it's kind of gone in a different direction. And then there's the non-evasive. The non-evasive has no impact on you whatsoever in a sense of physical touch or anything going in and out of your body. And I think this is probably the most healthy and the most productive and long-lasting ways too.
So what makes NeurOptimal different from the other?
Well, that would be it actually. One of the biggest ones is the non-evasiveness of NeurOptimal. It basically works with audio. So as we all know, harmony is a series of absence. You know, we hear it as a continuous form of music. That's the consciousness, the way we see the world and everything is a continuous flow. But really what creates harmony or melodies is little breaks in the music, the notes and their stops. We don't hear it so much with our conscious, but we pick it up and that's what creates the overall amplitude, frequency, and so forth. So NeurOptimal works in this way. It connects with EEGs, and then what you listen to will turn on and off occasionally, which in a way attracts the attention of your nervous system to give it a kind of reflection on what it's doing.
So what can I expect from NeurOptimal sessions?
What can you expect from a NeurOptimal session? Well, this is a good question because I like to say under promise and over deliver, but in your sense, in what a person's using it, I'll go with my own experience. I wanted to use it first because I found it very intriguing. I've done other forms before. I've implemented and been a practitioner for other forms. And I've never really seen any really have that much of an impact as I'd wanted to. As the impact compared to the consequences of the adverse effects of its, evasiveness. So now I look at NeurOptimal. I've done about 20 plus sessions now over the last 2-3 months. The first session I did, I remember very well, I had a great night's sleep. I mean, I felt like I hadn't slept like that in forever. Didn't wake up, didn't even move, just perfect sleep, feeling rejuvenated. The next few sessions, I really didn't notice so much a change in myself. But after about 5 or 6, I started to feel lighter. I felt that I was not encumbered by so many things. I wouldn't even be able to tell what those things were, but I felt lighter. Along with the lighter then came certain other areas that I noticed, less aggressiveness. I tend to be sometimes impatient. I'm much more relaxed and patient with certain things now. I found myself to be able to change my focus very freely, whereas before I found it very difficult. If I was distracted, it would be very difficult to get back into focus. Now I'm seeing that I can stop and realign my focus. This is ideal for ADHD. ADHD people, and anybody with lack of attention deficit disorder or focus in that sense. Also, my mood is much more stabilized. I mean, I've never really been a moody person, but I found myself maintaining a certain mood continuously that offers me a better mental health in general, rather than going in and out of certain conditions. I will admit that I was using this during a period where I had a little bit of emotional turmoil, and it really helped me during that period too as well.
Okay, so how many sessions should I commit to?
I think everyone should commit to at least 10 sessions. I think at 10 sessions you really get a full feeling of this. After the 10 sessions you can make an evaluation to if you need to continue or not, but I truly honestly believe this is something that can be done at around 10 to 20, 30 sessions a year as a totality, but once you've actually established that regular routine process of getting there.
Is it safe?
It's 100% safe. It's so safe that there's no measures, there's no impact back on you. There's nothing that it does to you specifically other than condition your brain to work at its optimum, unique performance. So it's not going to make your brain work in a different way like somebody else's brain. It's going to make it work unique to its own self in its optimal condition. So it's also much safer than taking a lot of the medications that are out there these days. I mean, I know for a fact that the kids that have done this, all those that are 12, 13-year-old kids, mainly 10 to 14 even, they have seen that this is a huge impact on their ADHD. So rather than taking like Ritalin, which just burns your brain and creates so many more problems later on with their side effects, this is a much better result way driven of helping kids with ADHD.
Okay, so officially approved from any source?
NeurOptimal is actually from Zengar Institute, which is a Canadian company. And one of the first things they did actually about 3 years ago with their newer version is got FDA approval. So the Food and Drug Administration has this fully approved as an instrument for brain conditioning. It is also on a schedule for therapy. It is used in many different ways for treatments of certain conditions and PTSD, ADHD, depression. As a matter of fact, recent studies are coming out now showing how effective it is in Alzheimer's prevention, dementia prevention. Anyone from over 50 starting to use it has much more lower chance of having Alzheimer's. For those who already have Alzheimer's, it has been noted on the ARCON scale to being able to bring them down to lower impact modes. So it's fantastic in these areas. I would definitely say that it is safe, it is very effective, and a very non-cumbersome way of reconditioning your brain.
So let's say, who can benefit the most from it?
Everyone can benefit from it, that is without a doubt. But I would say that anybody from age 10 to 15 that is having issues with any form of ADHD, having issues with certain outbursts, mood balances, even those that have maybe had substance withdrawals can even benefit from this. Then later I would say that anybody in a high stress environment that are dealing with day-to-day things that are just really making them anxious or stressed out, they can definitely benefit from it because it regulates sleep. Then I would say over 50 and 60 plus, even 70 plus, it's gone up. I think they did their study on 80 plus people for the Alzheimer's. But anybody over 50 and 60 that is, starting to feel a little bit like forgetful or starting to find themselves a little bit quickly distracted and not being able to refocus themselves when they want to, can greatly benefit from its ability to kind of recalibrate your brain and bring it to an optimum working condition.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.